Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Alright, so exceptions. As developers, we've all been there. The dreaded exceptions. They can sneak up on us when we least expect them, and they are really annoying to deal with. But hey, here's the thing. Dealing with exceptions doesn't have to be a headache. You don't need to be a Python guru or something to handle them like a pro. In fact, mastering just a handful of exceptions is all that it takes to tackle 80% of real world scenarios. It's the classic 80-20 rule in action. This video is all about covering the most important 20%. The top 7 most commonly seen exceptions in Python. Excited to get started? Let's get to it. Let's start with FileNotFoundError, which is ranked number 7 in our list. The obvious reason for this error is, of course, the Python interpreter could not find the file mentioned in our code. This usually happens due to one of the following 3 reasons. Either you have entered the file name incorrectly, or the file is not in the correct location, or last but not the least, there is no file. So now all you have to figure out is which one of these 3 reasons caused the file not found error in your case and fix that. If all this feels confusing to you, don't worry. We have written step-by-step troubleshooting procedure for each of the 7 exceptions that we'll be seeing in this video. You can find the links in the description. Alright, time to move to the next exception in our list, which is NameError. Have a look at the following piece of code. Here we are trying to print a variable named a. When ran, we get the following output. NameError name a is not defined. Pretty obvious stuff. We didn't define variable a and we got a name error. In this case, the code itself is very simple and obvious. But in real life scenarios, it's never this simple or obvious. For example, what if your code base is made up of thousands of files and you're importing hundreds of libraries? Don't worry, we got you covered. Just like with FileNotFoundError, we have devised a step-by-step process you can follow to fix any name error. You can find the article linked in the description. So, coming in at number 5 on our list is attribute error. If you don't have a computer science background, you're probably thinking, what the heck is an attribute? As you might know, each class is made up of a combination of variables and functions. Hence, these variables and functions can be thought of as building blocks of any given class. Attributes is just a fancy way of saying building blocks of a class. For example, the following class has 3 attributes. The variable a is attribute 1, the variable b is the second attribute, and this init method is the third attribute. I hope you got the point. So whenever you run into an attribute error, it's basically the Python interpreter telling you that it cannot find a variable or a function with the name that you've mentioned in the code. So basically it's just another name error. Name error is for objects and attribute error is for the variables and functions inside the object. Attribute errors can be very tricky to find and fix. So if you ever find yourself stuck trying to solve an attribute error, head over to our attribute error article linked in the description for a step-by-step troubleshooting guide. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. Coming in at number 4 on our list is value error. If you have run into a value error, it usually means that you have passed an incorrect value to a function. Let's have a look at a quick example. Here we have 2 variables a and b. A has the number 5 and b has the word 5. Passing them to the inbuilt int function, we get value error. That's because the int function expects numbers, not alphabets. Yes, both the number 5 and the word 5 are strings, but the second one has an error in the value because it has alphabets, and hence a value error was raised. I hope it makes sense. If not, just pause the video for a couple of minutes, sit quietly and think. I'm sure you'll figure it out. Alright, 4 down, 3 to go. Coming in at number 3 on our list is ModuleNotFoundError. If you've ever run into this error, then it's probably because of one of the 4 following reasons. It's because either you haven't installed the module, or you have misspelled the name of the module, or maybe you've spelled it correctly but you mixed up some uppercase and lowercase letters, or there is some problems with your environment setup. So all you have to do is figure out which one of these reasons caused the module not found error in your case and fix it. If you find yourself stuck, you can always head over to our module not found error troubleshooting guide. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. The second most commonly faced exception in Python is KeyError. Everyone usually faces KeyError in some point on their Python journey, especially while working with dictionaries. But hey, did you know that KeyErrors can occur in sets too? Yes, sets are not made up of keys and values, but the internal implementation of the elements of the set is exactly the same as the way keys are implemented in dictionaries. Key errors are avoidable. You just have to use the set default method, and you can make your code to check the dictionary before accessing elements. We have a couple of articles on our website. One for dealing with key errors in dictionaries and another one for dealing with key errors in sets. As usual, you can find them both linked in the description. Alright, so any guesses on what the top exception is? I hope you guessed it right. It is type error. There's a reason type error got the first place in our list. It's because they're really tricky to debug and fix. Some of the tricky causes of type error are passing an incorrect object type to a function. For example, if a function expects a string and we are passing it an integer, it can result in type error, as the expected type is a string, but we gave it an integer. The next tricky cause of type error is calling a non-callable object. For example, here we have a equals 5, which means a is an integer object, and if I try to call it, I get a type error because this is just a variable, it's not a function. Believe it or not, this kind of mistakes are common while coding because some functions and variables will have very similar names. The third tricky cause for type error is using a bad index to a list. For example, using a string as a list index instead of an integer like this. You might be thinking, who in their right mind will make this kind of a mistake? Believe me, it happens. For example, let's say you have a variable which stores the list index, but instead of using that variable, you use some other variable that might have a string inside, and you end up with the type error. Also, if you try to iterate on something that is not designed for that, you will again get a type error. For example, in this for loop, we are trying to iterate over the list which contains 4 elements A, B, C, and D. Now, instead of trying to loop over a list, if you loop over an integer object, you will of course end up with a type error. Figuring out which one of these tricky reasons caused the type error in your case can get challenging if you don't have a proper process. As with the other errors, we have an entire article dedicated to a step-by-step troubleshooting guide for the type error. As usual, you can find the link in the description. And that ends our top 7 most commonly faced exceptions in Python. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons to help us grow our channel. I will see you in the next one.